What's up, everybody? Thanks for coming today. I think this is going to be a good one. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome, which comes for every artist. I think name your biggest rock star icon of the art world, and that artist has had a day where they're just like, do I suck? Am I a professional doing a job, or am I just some dude sitting out in a shed playing arts and crafts? So I think it's really awesome just for us all to hear different stories about how that happens to everybody, and also just some strategies for overcoming that. I am joined today by my good friend Randy Ruedisueli. Randy, we've known each other for a couple of years now. I think we first talked doing like a little mentorship hour together. You are a Concept Art Academy alum, and we're joined by some of your classmates and some other Concept Art Academy alums, current students, and future students, which is awesome. But your work was like very good the first time I met you, and you have made huge progress. But man, you have been harder on yourself than most artists.
Yeah.
And I think you're the best possible case study for this, because I need to make you see your own art through my eyes so you can see how awesome it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And you've gone on to accomplish a lot. So could you kind of walk us through your general, I don't know, arc as an artist up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We've had so many conversations, even from the beginning. When I first contacted you, I said, help me not suck anymore. Like, I think I even sent you, I had this whole spiel in email for those who, little backstory, sent Hardy an email, said, man, I'm terrible. I'm spinning my wheels. I've been at this for years. Like, I can't do this. I'm so close to quitting. What can I do differently? And so, he expected, I remember he asked me for a quick shot of some of the pieces that I thought were the best, and I sent him a few. And I sent him with embarrassment. Like, I sat there over the email, like, these are, and sent the email. He comes back with, oh my God, I was expecting so much worse. I thought this was going to be, like a whole work in progress. And they were, what you said, they were decent pieces to work with. So, yet my arc is that I have always, and I'm not sure when it'll go away or if it will, or maybe it's just something we suffer with, but 9 times out of 10, when I submit a piece, I usually don't like it. And I hate that as an artist. I don't know why it's like that. But yeah, I'm very hard on myself. There's never enough that I could do to the piece to get it to a satisfying level. And if it is, sometimes that's like the ultimate, elation. Then I'm like, yes, this one feels good. So yeah, that's
great, because it can be, I think in your case, actually, it's a big part of your drive is you're not going to be satisfied with it unless it is like excellent, which I think is a good thing. But, we don't want to get into that place where it's like you're just never going to feel any kind of satisfaction in your work if it's anything less than perfect. But
plus,
yeah,
I'll over render something to death, which is the other killer, because you want to do some artistic, you want to stop at some point to have a little bit of that touch. I'm like, let's go down and get these little, skin bumps and tag. I'll do too much because I'm
totally
so insecure about it sometimes.
If you're zooming into 1,000% and doing 1 pixel brush work, it's probably a sign of that.
Yeah.
And that was me too, totally. Kind of wondering, could I render something into awesomeness? Could I just, through willpower and giving it as much possible effort, maximum hours, maximum effort, can I just make something good? And that's why I hate my whole portfolio from 10 years ago, because it's all this, it's like this manifestation of imposter syndrome where I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel like this was a career I was going to be able to achieve. So I would just kind of throw hours at it until it felt like it was better. But all of that looks just like over rendered lifeless garbage to me now.
Yeah.
So weirdly, I don't know if like the confidence came first and then that all started feeling more okay to me, or if it sort of happened the opposite way. If I like decided to not care so much, I don't know, take a step back, let yourself off the hook for
Yeah.
imperfection, that led to all of this expressiveness and life to my work. Um, I'm not sure how that went actually. It's like you start feeling like you're a little bit better, so you relax more, and your work becomes better because you're
Yeah.
relaxed more.
Yeah.
Um, so that's always a hard thing to try and like ferry students through, is kind of, let's find something that can give us that quick success that feels like a win,
Yeah.
so that you get confident, which actually makes you loosen up and your work gets better again.
There's a physical manifestation of this as well, where when you first start learning as art, and I bet you the people on this call would probably agree, is that when you first start learning to draw, we draw really stiff and like, or we have these scratchy lines, and we're watching every little movement to make sure it doesn't mess us up. But then when you get confident, you start realizing, oh, I'm going to use my elbow. I get these big movements, a lot of motion, and you got this confident line confidence. I think we talked about line hierarchy in your mentorship, and that's the physical manifestation for me of that mental thought, is that you get more confident, you get more, oh, I know how to do this. So you think less about it, which frees up your ability to be more creative, and all those little technical details that they start to come natural, that, oh, I know light reacts like this. I know, my shadow is going to be like this. My colors are going to interplay like that. So I think a lot of that confidence and going back to imposter syndrome, to try to diminish it, is really just starting to know what you're doing and having fun doing it. Because then once you take all those technicalities away, you can actually just start to enjoy yourself. And that's where the art starts to come alive.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's kind of like you learn the rules so that you can sort of forget them and not even be aware of this stuff anyway. It's just sort
Yeah.
of there when you call for it. But no, totally. I can remember maybe around this time, I don't know, and I wish I could point to a specific piece of art or event that led me to this, but it was this realization that over rendering was killing my work, and I needed to take a step back into just kind of, loosening up and just letting brush strokes happen, get messy. And I think it was seeing like all of the artists, the rock star industry icons who I admired, like Anthony Jones or Cedric Perret-Vernet, that Dishonored artist whose work I love. All of it seems so messy and expressive,
Yeah.
but incredibly realistic and like technically awesome at the same time. So I don't know. It also seemed like this huge flex. Like they have this portfolio piece that looks like, I mean, it's awesome. This should be on the cover of something, but it's also like they didn't even care enough to like clean up the edges. Like
Yeah.
this is just some throwaway sketch. I don't know. That seemed like the ultimate expression of confidence. And I don't know if that's what draws us into their work, is that I don't know. It's interesting, but that totally clicked for me. Like I need to not care and just leave those edges messy and expressive. And
But I do think that comes with knowing what you're doing. Like obviously you look at their artwork and it's well done, right? Like, and then you zoom in and you're like, what the hell were they doing here?
yeah,
And to me, I'll let you know when I've solved that mystery myself, because I haven't. There's some artwork I study and I go, like, it just looks like I can't explain it. It's beautiful. And then you zoom in close and it's like, oh, it's kind of messy, but it's not. So yeah, I still haven't figured that part out yet.
yeah. Actually, I should come up with some exercises for that, because I think you can literally just polish something as much as you want to. Like, let's really get neurotic on this. And then let's flatten the whole thing and get a smudge brush and just start like finger painting through it, like blow it all up until it all, that weirdly starts to make it look better when you work in that messiness. I don't know. I know we've talked a lot about the uncanny valley, like when something gets rendered to a certain level of realism, it's like we either have to commit to
Oh yeah. Yep.
real realism, or we can hide stuff in brush strokes
Right.
and make it look kind of like expressive and free. So weirdly, those messy steps kind of hide a lot of that other stuff that makes it um, kind of more difficult. It's like you can leave that little blank space for your viewer to come in and kind of finish the picture in their own mind, just in all those messy areas. But
I think that's the important part though too, is that having that leaving a little bit to the imagination with your art. Like I've always been a person that really enjoys not realistic rendering. I've always hated photo bashing, realistic, that kind of stuff. I prefer painterly style. Some of my favorite artists, you have the John Parks out there who have that very beautiful painter style. You have Loish with characters. I think her paintings are just so, I mean, she paints with, I don't even know. It's just amazing when you watch the work. And I've always been inspired by, I have too many artist heroes. I think one of my biggest ones that kicked me off was Jeremy Fensky. I watched him paint a Zelda painting and I was like, who the hell's this? Like it's just amazing. And it's that semi-realistic, that you're still obeying the laws of the world, but they do it in such a painterly way. And I've always loved that. But the funny thing is, and I can't remember, I wish I can remember who said this because it was hilarious, but it was about, over rendering. It says, if you don't have your foundation correct, your values and your structure on the bottom, then you can render something to death as much as you want, but you can, or what do you say? Like a turd still a turd, no matter how much you render that turd. Like, so I was like, oh, that really rang true to me. Cause I was like, it's true. If you don't have the basics down, that's why these guys who have that messy style, it turns out to look so good, is because they know their perspective. They know their value scales. They know their light and color and how it interacts. And it's just, again, going back to, once you have that confidence level, I think you feel less of imposter when you know that you have the basics down. It takes.
I think I'm going to put a turd is still a turd as a quote from you as the thumbnail for this video. If you don't
No, I knew I was going to put one of those out there. I did it.
No, it's awesome. Totally right. You polish all you like, but if it's rotten at the core, it's not going to work. That's kind of a good, I think, like design and painting principle. Like if the design isn't there, just the shapes are not working, you can render it for a week and it's still, going to seem weird.
Right. And I've actually learned as artist that if I get to the point where I'm pushing too much and I can't seem to make the render work, then I know I stop and I go, okay, there's something wrong, a couple steps back. And it's as frustrating as to come to terms with that. I think I've learned this with the jobs that I've had this summer, actually, because what we're doing, without giving stuff away, I'm rendering a lot of different things. And when I get to this point where the render no longer works, I usually kick it back, frustrating, and kick rocks, but I go back to the structure or the value. It almost always is the value for me. If the value's wrong, that's where I catch it once I start pushing it past. So I learned a lot from a previous student too. I think he's on the Zoom, as Dave Baldridge, phenomenal artist as well. I work with him, and I think he's a value or a render kind of king when it comes to values. And so I kind of lean on a lot of his tips and tricks to help get that value and those tips that you have on your videos. I can't tell you how many times I go back to video archives. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I just have that on like a tab saved on the top of my screen. I've frequented organics and metal about 6 times this week. So
that's awesome. That's what it's meant for, is to kind of be this encyclopedia you leave on the shelf and grab as needed. That's so cool. And yeah, I saw David is here. And
what's up, Dave?
he is awesome. I'll call you out, David. Actually, I'm looking. This is like this is a lineup, man. Star list we have here.
I know. Like the cool thing is, I know most of the people on this chat, and I actually recognize some of the newer people that I've just met in the Discord. Phenomenal artists. Like I'm very excited to be among this group, and I got to shout out to my other people that aren't in the classes, Daha and Michi, Sean. These are people I've actually worked with Brainstorm mentorships with, and I know I think Daha's work will be shown soon, and get ready for that.
Very excited.
Blow your mind.
Well, I think I'd love to like open it up to the group, but before we do that, Randy, you had this like incredibly inspiring post you put on your socials maybe a week or two ago, and you don't have to like recite it or anything, but like it was this moving description of you were in a job that was a good job, but it was not, giving you that satisfaction out of your professional life that you wanted. I know you have had some times where you were less than confident that this was going to work for you, and you're in a very different place right now, and a great trajectory. Could you kind of like talk to us about that, just to kind of bring the whole imposter syndrome thing home?
Yeah, actually, it's exactly that whole thing that made me feel like that's why I'm battling imposter syndrome, because it was such a weird way this has all come about. I know I've always loved art. Here's a little story time. I'll try to cut the too many details, but I loved art, and I knew coming out of high school I wanted to do something with art. But back then, the resources like this, like Digital Painting Studio and all the stuff, they weren't really that great. I know the first thing I ran across was Pittsburgh Institute of Art Online. And so I took their video game design course, and wasn't what I was looking for. It was more like computer graphics. And I was like, but I want to draw. Like my very first art book was the Revenge of the Sith art book. And I was obsessed with it. And I was like, well, who's doing all this? And I couldn't figure out, I couldn't find anything. I finally found Ryan Church was one of the artists in there. And I started watching Gnomon videos, and I was like, there's got to be classes like this. But long story short, I burned out because I couldn't find the right resources, and I went to the wrong school. So I quit art a long time ago. And a lot of family and friends were like, well, it's good because be realistic. Remember starving artists? And I was like, okay. I ended up becoming a paramedic, working in the medical field. I did a lot of different things in the medical field, and I ended up being the food and nutrition director for several different hospitals. I kind of moved around, but I've been doing that for 20 years. It was a really good career. I moved up the chain. I was making really good money. And I couldn't have been more unhappy in my life. It was a constant call to do art. I wake up thinking about sketching. I'd go to bed thinking about sketching. And during the day, I probably shouldn't say, but sometimes lunch breaks, I'll just put it that way, I'll be sketching in my office. And so I knew I'll
beep that part out. Don't worry.
No, but even my boss at the time, they knew like I loved art. And so, but it wasn't in my heart. It's not what I wanted to do, despite how great of an opportunity it was. I knew I wanted to do this, and I wanted to be a concept artist. So I ended up meeting you because I reached out after spinning my tires for so long. That was the worst part. The worst part of all this, and what ingrained this feeling that I wasn't an artist, was to do it alone was really hard. And to try to teach myself alone was really hard. I ended up attending CGMA and took some courses there. I was talking to you in the beginning. Brainstorm, I did mentorships at Brainstorm and classes at Brainstorm. And then, of course, all the YouTube videos. My God, Modern Day James. And I know that he was a big one. I just loved his sketching. And 5 years, I think, went by. And it was 4 years, I think. And then I reached out to you because I was like, I'm not developing anymore. And then we did your mentorship. And I think that's where things came together, and where I started realizing that maybe I can do this. So with the help of my friends and with your mentorship, things have really happened very fast over the last year. It's almost like it's sort of clicked. And I think where my imposter syndrome lays in is that I don't know if I was like, am I a professional? Even though I'm working 2 jobs, I constantly do it every day. Like, am I a pro? Like, it's really hard to see other people's artwork too, because there's always someone way better than you, always. And I'm a jealous type. I'm a very competitive person. So when I see someone that's better than me, sometimes I got to go, well, don't I have to get on this? I'm just gonna, stick to myself then. And it takes me a second to get back and be like, I can learn from them. Like, let's go talk. Like, so I'm just a very competitive person by nature. So I get really timid when someone's really good at art. And I think that's part of that feeling as well. It
That
really.
is so funny that you mentioned that. I think I have the same thing. When I see like something awesome, my first instinct is just hatred. Like, damn it. Why did you make this and I didn't?
Yeah.
And then you're right. Then like the adult part of the brain comes back and you kind of get it. I will go even farther back with the story is I met one of my best friends for my whole life in kindergarten. And I was like the kid who could draw. Like, check this out. I'll draw you a shark. That's just how I made friends. And this new kid was in kindergarten. And I walked up behind him. I'll never forget this. He was drawing some dude holding an umbrella. And I remember being like, that is the best umbrella I've ever seen. And I remember being pissed at this kid. Like, I'm the kid who draws. What are you doing? I mean, he was in my wedding. He's one of my best friends to this day. But that's really funny that the first instinct when you see amazing art is just anger. And then we kind of come back to how can I appreciate this and learn from it?
I gotta
awesome.
I gotta call out, like, because my classmates in Octo never really saw it because I think I had it better under control, but also we didn't have as many opportunities than I do, with my Discord group from Brainstorm. So I know Dahan and Michi and Sean have heard me at my lowest points where I'm like, why are you so good? I hate you. Like it's just natural for you. I'm gonna quit. And they talk me off the edge a lot. And they're like, hey, come back. You're they give me a hard time. They're not soft on me. So I think it takes a good group of people to understand that, like, part of getting over imposter syndrome and part of getting over is getting over yourself and understanding that, like, art is a forever journey. It's not, hey, I just learned these skills, they're checked off. It's not The Sims, right? Like, where you can play The Sims and you level up on your, it's not, it just never feels like you're complete. And I realize you never are. It's just a forever journey. And you just develop. And the more you surround yourself with good, talented, nice people, the faster you develop as an artist. So I think that is how you combat that syndrome, honestly.
Totally. I mean, I can't imagine doing any of this any other way now. Can you imagine trying to, I don't know, when you're just alone in your own echo chamber of you sitting with your art? And when I was a 20 something, it was, you posted on CG Society, and you might get like one comment and some likes, but it's like, is that my measuring stick? Okay, I'll start making another one now. But
well, that's a good point.
Now, yes,
social media. That's a really good point. Social media is a killer. Like, if I sit and think about it, I have a very small following on Instagram. It's very small. It's like less than 300 people. And in the beginning, I was kind of like, what the hell? Why can't I, like, I've seen, there's a guy somewhere on Instagram that draws like different ducks, and they're like just one sketchy line, and the guy's got like 100,000 followers. Like, what is this? Like, I know way better artists that have, but then at some point you let that go too, because it really can feed in. I think social media can be a really negative thing. It could be a positive thing for growth, right? A lot of my jobs, or a lot of things that have happened have been related to people finding me. But on the same flip side, like, if you post something with the intention that you're going to blow up, then you're going to be really disappointed, because that algorithm just chews you up and spits you out.
Totally. Double-edged sword. And I think that's the exact right attitude. It's like, yeah, I agree. I have seen art that has like 1 million likes, and I'm just not quite seeing the artistic merits that would warrant that.
It's all relative, right?
I think it's all kind of a big game that some are just very good at playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think anybody on this chat is the kind who is making art specifically to trick an algorithm or spamming a social media account just for the sake of having more followers. And I think that's exactly how you have to look at it. It's a tool. It can, be kind of a passive advertising thing
Yeah.
for your own services. And it can be fun to connect. I mean, I will fully admit, every comment I get on Instagram or YouTube is just this, rings that little validation bell in your brain.
It
We're all
does.
after that, right?
Addictive.
As artists, let's
Yeah.
be real. It's you holding your picture up to your mom when you're a kid. Like, is this good? It's
That's
that,
exactly it,
but
honestly.
we're
Now you just use
adults.
the world. No, and
um,
that's a perfect point. Like, yeah, we all seek validation, and I think too, like when you're working professionally, you seek validation from your coworkers and your boss. When you're in mentorships, you want to be the best. You want to see validation from your peers. Social media is exactly that. It's as an artist, I think we all crave that attention a little bit. Otherwise, even if you say no, I don't. Maybe a little bit, because you're out there and you're putting your work out there, and you want to see someone say something, and it feels good to get comments. It feels good to someone shares it and you're like, whoa, what'd you like about it? And it does feel good.
Randy, I only create art to be as self-expression. No, yeah,
Yeah,
totally. I want people to tell me it's good.
right. And
Um,
for me, I think social media is like taking a stack of business cards and then throwing them in the air in a crowd, because you one person's going to look at it and be like, I got a project that's perfect for this guy. And so, it's I left that last career because I was unhappy, but bottom line is you have to make money. And so I'm after, I think when it comes to priorities and what has switched is happiness is first. And then money will come second. And I think money comes a little easier when you're happy doing what you're doing. Before, if I worked, 12-hour day, I was exhausted. Now, if I work a 12-hour day doing art, I'm like, yeah, what's next? Now I want to draw for fun. And so it's just a different world. And I love it.
that is awesome, man. Well, I think that's a great point to maybe kind of pivot a little bit. Anybody else in on the chat? Maybe floor is open if you have anything to add, any questions for Randy or for me. Jump in. We can have kind of a little open floor part of the call.
Yeah, let's talk.
I actually have I have a quick question, actually.
Yeah.
So I know we sort of mentioned it earlier, but why do you think imposter syndrome is such a common thing in the art world? Is it just the art world? Does it happen more or less than perhaps like under other industries? Like, what have you guys seen and observed from that?
That's an awesome question, dude. That's a really good question, because I actually had that same syndrome when I first was promoted to director from manager, because I was like, why would they promote me to director? It was so weird. Even though I was interviewing, I was like, I'm gonna knock it out of the park. As soon as I sat down and I was a director, I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to do it. I think, I think it happens everywhere. I think it's more prominent in art, just because you see immediately whoever you work with, you can see their art immediately. And you know how we're all very hard on ourselves, but when you see your coworker bust out like really good shots, you're like, oh shit, can I do that? I'm telling you now, like even Dave, you can call me out on this. The very first thing I said to my job when I got on, I was like, can I render like you guys? Like, and it happens so fast. And I do think it trickles across other things, but I think it's right in your face when you're an artist.
Totally. I think we're kind of uniquely vulnerable to it, because art is sort of like a difficult to pin down thing about like what is good and what is not. So, that's what leads to all these other stigmas around it, like being a not serious job. All of those myths that make artists quit and not, keep doing what they want to do.
Right.
It has that stigma of being like sort of a silly type of pursuit. It has that subjective quality where you're never 100% sure if just one thing is measurably good or not. So it creates this cycle of doubt, I think, that can kind of get away from you, probably more so than most kind of professions. Like, everything else seems to have really clear measurables about, am I a good doctor or, whatever. But art you sort of, it takes this long time in the wilderness of just belief in yourself and kind of slugging it through all of this doubt until these opportunities finally like validate that time that you've put in. But it's nerve-wracking to kind of make it through that silence and just believe that it's all going to work out. But that's
Speaking of stigmas, which is funny, I wonder how many people can relate to this. How many people are still dealing with the stigma from it? Usually comes from the parents. You know, I'm 37 years old, and I still, when I tell my mom what I'm doing, she goes, "So does the computer draw for you?" Like, and when it comes to digital art, I think that's the number one thing I always get when I talk to people, like, "Oh, so like it's a program that like makes things." I'm like, and for the longest time, I was like, "No, you draw. It's like you need talent." But now Mid-Journey's here, so I don't know.
That'll be another video. But
Yeah,
interesting point. You know, I was very lucky, I think. Incredibly supportive parents. My mom took those pictures and put them on the fridge and you know, tell strangers in the grocery lines what I do for a living. So I'm very lucky. My dad too. But yeah, I think that's you know, and actually as a parent myself, imagining down the road when my kids are picking a career, when they say, you know, I want to be an artist, I got to admit, I would have those instincts too, to be like, well, you know, is there maybe a more stable career path? Because
not you, Artie.
Yeah, right. It's all coming from a place of love, right? Where they just want you to be okay. But I'm going to, you know, remember the other side of that coin and do what my parents did for me and just back them up. So this is going to be recorded and posted forever. So they'll be able to call me on this one day. So yeah, when they want to like join the circus or something, and be like, "You said I could go for it, Dad. Follow your dreams."
I couldn't say, like, you know, and I understood too with my mom and my parents. They were, of course, skeptical, and they did really bring up the starving artist thing. And my mom will laugh about it now because there's all kinds of different art, right? Like you can still probably relate starving artists to fine artists who like hope that their pieces hang in a museum and they get big. And I think that's a harder path to me sometimes. But we're doing commercial art, we're doing entertainment design, we're doing I'm losing, like, all that kind of concept designs. They're needed for everything: products, movies, games. I think it's a very lucrative career, but it's also a career where your competition is really good. And I mean, one of the things that always got me so frustrated was a video I watched with Fang Zhu, because Fang Zhu is like a concept art god, and he said, "Look, like at the time I was putting like 5 or 6 hours a night into drawing. I'm like, man, I'm busting my butt." And then in the video was like, "Well, look, there's guys, you can put 5 or 6 minimum if you want, but there's guys that are drawing for 20 hours a day." And those are your competition. Those are the guys that are grinding out. I never thought about it until I actually went to mentorships and I saw those guys existed and what they do and how fast they develop. And I've been bypassed like a million times. It just made that fire inside of me even stronger. And so, yeah, I'm not going to be done until like, I don't think there's an end goal for me. I want to be ultimate.
Awesome.
I got a long road to go. Long road.
That's awesome. Yeah, never be satisfied, right? I forgot where I picked this up, but making yourself 1% better every day, so that every day you can say, "I am better than I was yesterday. So therefore, I have never been a better artist than I am right now." I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's
Just
a good
relentless forward progress. And, you know, where will that lead you? It's exciting to consider.
And I know today's about imposter syndrome, but injecting the mental health part into it, which is a huge thing for me, is one of the biggest ways to develop too is to shed the negativity. And I'm a very pessimistic person naturally. So I'm the guy that if there's a cloud in the sky, someone else will be like, "Oh man, it's so sunny." I'm like, "But look at that cloud." Like I might even be like borderline Debbie Downer, you know, the Saturday, or was it Mad TV or Saturday Night Live, or the like,
that was SNL.
yeah, I might be a little little bit that way. I'm very hard on myself, and it's always like, well, the glass is actually half empty.
Now I'm going to add sound effects to this.
You're gonna the Debbie Downer
Yeah.
sound effects. Wow, wow. But I think my best drawings, my best work comes when I'm feeling good or feeling positive about myself, and I think that goes into a lot with imposter syndrome. Like you can also fight back if you feel happy, if you're like, I am good, I'm telling myself. Sometimes I started drawing off by going, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Like, it's important.
What gets me there is like the paralysis before you start a project, when you're just overthinking everything and like, I love this idea, but what about this, this, and this? And if you just start something, it like the groove kind of grabs you, and you're in that happy place where things, shapes are working together, or colors or values, and it's like, what was I ever even worried about? But it's like, you have to get started, just do something.
I draw a cube. I always draw a cube first for in 3-point perspective. And because it gives me a feel good. Like, I know how to draw a 3-point perspective cube. It's the basic of basics. And as soon as I do that, I go, okay, I'm ready. And I usually didn't, no one knows, even my peoples on the chat, you guys don't know that. I always throw a cube somewhere. I got sketchbooks full of cubes. And
That's interesting.
I also throw out my first sketches. So when I start a sketch, I actually don't suffer from blank canvas problems that much, because I always prepare that my first sketch sucks anyways. So like, I'm not afraid of the first sketch. And 9 times out of 10, like the first sketch actually turns out okay, because I'm not afraid of it.
I guess I don't want to go too long, but any other questions or comments from our distinguished panel before we maybe bring this one home?
Yes, I was wondering, what do you think, Randy and Hardy, for you is the most important thing when you're trying to get into the industry for motivating yourself when you're dealing with all of these pretty much imposter syndromes? Is it knowing that you like art, or something else personally?
Now, Hardy, if you want to kick this guy off the chat, I totally understand. No, I'm kidding, me too. I think it's loving what you do. For me, I don't know, Hardy, if you feel differently, but like, I get so excited to like, what other job in the world do you get to create a monster one day, or like draw a sword, or draw something that's not of this world like that? One of my obsessions has always been Lord of the Rings. I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings. I think it's freaking awesome. And it's this whole world that was designed. And like, what if I had a job where I can design a whole world? And so for me, I don't know if this answers that question, because that's actually really tough question. But I think when you love what you do, there's not really an obstacle in your way. You find a way to creatively get around it. Hardy, I don't know what you would say to
No,
that.
totally. I guess I kind of feel like I have to. It's this thing I enjoy more than anything else. It feels like the thing I feel like I am great at, or have the potential to be great at. So it's like, this is my lane, and I'm going to really, give everything I have to this pursuit. So that's part of it. But yeah, it's this physical activity that I truly enjoy, like whittling or knitting or something. I like actually love doing the action of creating art. And I saw this once, and it kind of ruined me, because this became the gold standard, and like nothing else will do. But it was probably like an Instagram quote, but it said, do something you love to support your family and put something positive out into the world. What could be better than that? And we all sort of have that opportunity as artists to do all of those. And I think like that is literally the top 0.1% of luckiest humans on earth who can hit all 3 of those boxes. That's pretty great. So totally. And also just, I get to sit at my desk and draw a monster, or a, spaceship, or a character. Couldn't possibly top that in my mind.
it just feels like brag worthy. I know, like, even with my previous job, I had a pretty high position. I never felt as proud as I do now. And it's hilarious because now I just like look at my sword, and it is that thing again. It's back to that. And I just feel like sometimes I feel super cool that I'm in this industry. They say like concept artists sometimes feel like rock stars, and that's okay, right? We all bust our butts to get this. It's really hard to become a concept artist, right? It's really hard to develop these skills. It's a lifelong thing. So I think it's okay to like be a little egotistical about it sometimes. Not like a not like a jerk, but like yeah, check this out. I made a really cool spaceship, or check this out. I drew this. That's why to be in the credits of a game or a movie or like that'd be awesome. And
Absolutely.
but then at the same time, if you're providing for your family, I have 3 kids, and the fact that I can feed them by drawing monsters and swords and like, dude, how cool is that? That's so cool.
And and kids, I find that my sons think what I do is cool.
Oh my God, yes.
that's literally a drug.
I got invited to my first career show and tell thing by my kids at their school, and they're like, "Oh, tell them what you do," and they keep telling people I make video games, and I'm like, hold that down. I'm not like on any AAA. Like, you're not going to hear about anything I'm doing right now. But
I love that. Like, oh, what video game did you make? It's like, well, I mean, nothing you've heard of.
Right. Exactly. And so they're like, none of their friends believe him. They're like, he does it. And I'm like, what do you even say? Like, yeah, not yet. But what I do is cool. It's cooler than what your mom does, I bet.
There you go. Doing something you love every day for a living. No further coolness required. I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, that's the dream for sure. That's all I ever wanted, I think.
Well, damn, man, that might be the happiest possible note to end on. Thanks so much to everybody for coming. This was awesome. Nice to see all these familiar faces, and great to talk to you as always, Randy, and enjoyed hearing your, more about your story and your perspective. You're an awesome artist. I'm so happy for where you found yourself and where you're heading. That's awesome. So thanks for doing this.
And I did want to say before we cut out, because I know we had a little fun and got off track from the imposter syndrome, but like any of those that are watching this and specifically watching because of that, feeling, I will say the one thing that is helpful is just keep doing it. Like, just keep trucking through, even when your renders are going bad, or even when you don't feel like it's like a roller coaster. And if you expect anything but that, then yeah, you're gonna be really frustrated. But if you're feeling like an imposter, there's a reason they hired you. There's a reason you're on that team already, and so just do what you do best and provide.
That's awesome. Totally. I think that'll resonate with everybody. Thanks, Randy. Thanks everyone else for showing up, and we'll do another one like this soon. But this was great.